I am so excited today because I'm here with my friend and colleague, Tania Doub. Tanya, how are you? I want to give you a proper introduction. You're the CEO, founder of a company called Mindful Quadrant. You're an author and a speaker. We're going to talk about your book and all the things you're working on, but I just want to welcome you to the podcast.
Thank you, Lori. You have no idea. Having this moment with you is my Oprah moment, Lori. I'm so happy to be here.
Love it.
We're going to have a lot of fun together, I think.
Absolutely. It's so good. So good to have you. We recently were able to get together for lunch with Carol Mahoney and some other really amazing women in Boston. Was that fun?
Yeah, that was amazing. I actually loved that you were here and you had such a busy schedule. You had a lot going on.
Yeah.
But we captured a little bit of holiday spirit. And I like to think that you and I and Carol, we actually started to pass along some holiday women in sales cheer. And there is nothing more beautiful than that. So that was
Yeah.
really nice to
And
do.
maybe we're starting an annual tradition, I hope. So
I think we are. I think
I
we
think
are.
there's a lot. We're gonna have some scheming involved around that. So
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Gee, I don't even know where to start other than you talk about how you accidentally stumbled into sales, right? But tell us about when you were starting out in your career, what you thought you would do, and then how did it wind into your this amazing sales role that you've been in?
Yeah. I do joke that I stumbled into it because I think sometimes we do put a lot of pressure on ourselves trying to imagine what our whole life is going to look like. And I think that's a lot for a little girl, right? I do remember when I was very young, I did have the gift of gab. And so everybody who knew me would say, she's going to be a lawyer. She's going to be in a job where she's just going to talk a lot. And so I didn't know what to do with that because I really did enjoy entertaining people and talking and having a healthy debate about things. But when I actually went to college, I did get my degree in marketing and entrepreneurship. And so the first few years out of college, I actually pursued marketing roles. And the reason I say accidentally stumbled into sales is because my first job and introduction to a SaaS company was I was actually a marketing coordinator and I reported to the head of sales. So I was part of the sales org in the roll up. And that's really how I started my introduction into the career. It was me in my mid 20s and a bunch of dudes in their 40s. And I did that job for about a year, 18 months, and I started getting the itch. Okay, what's next? What do I do? What do I do? And my sales leader was really an incredible leader because he tapped me and said, I think that there's a future for you in sales. What do you think
Wow,
about that?
it's
Yeah.
amazing.
It never
Good for
happens that
him.
way. But yeah, that's what he did. And so I ended up working for him for about 10 years, Lori, in that environment. And it was just the runway that I needed to learn and be inspired by all of these incredible sales leaders that I was surrounded by. And this was back 20 years ago. And so 20 years ago, in this particular org anyway, there was no formal structure around sales organizations and go to market. So
Here's your
you could,
phone. Here are your
yeah, I
leads.
just exactly. And
Good luck.
everybody was in it to win it, right? We didn't have big BDR teams. We didn't have mid market. We didn't have commercial teams.
Right.
I went from marketing coordinator to enterprise sales rep running some of the largest deals at the company. And
Yes.
so I truly have been in enterprise sales for 20 years.
That's so funny. It's funny because when I started in Seattle, my first job in sales, it actually started on the retail floor. We were selling computers, the
Wow.
personal computers, where software in a box, and you would work up to corporate accounts, but there was no delineation from a one person company and enterprise.
Which is amazing. You get to learn it all.
Yeah, so it was really fun. I really appreciated that. There were no boundaries at that time.
That's right. And actually, I think that is a beautiful thing because when there's no boundaries, you don't really know what the rules are. So you can't talk yourself out of anything, right? You just go with it.
Yeah. You got your MBA, right?
I did. I did. Yeah.
Was that I'm just curious how that fit in with
Why?
the picture.
Yeah. At the time, I was working for Digitas. I was working for an ad agency, and I still thought that I was pursuing just what you think you're supposed to do, right? I got my degree, and then I started working for a company, and they had dollars for perks for continued education, and I thought, "Why not?" Yeah, get my MBA, and when I did my MBA, I did actually double down on entrepreneurship, and a really interesting thing actually happened that has stuck with me over time, which I'm remembering in this moment. I didn't really ever make the
Yeah.
connection before, but I remember feeling deathly afraid of getting up in front of a room in a formal setting and doing a presentation.
Mm.
And during my master's program, I actually did get up in front of the room and do a presentation. And I was so nervous. I got all of the feels when I thought everyone's staring at me. I'm just going to completely mess this up. And I did my presentation and ended up being really natural. I was walking back to my desk to take my seat and hide under the covers. And someone tapped me and said, "You look like a newscaster up there." And I thought, "Oh, I didn't
Wow.
feel like one." Huh. So
Nice
I think
comment.
when I think back, maybe that's what I ended up getting from my MBA, really, because from then on, I felt this ease. And of course, I still get nervous. We all do, right? But
Yeah.
you understand that there's a process that your body just goes through, and how do I harness that to be the very
Yeah.
best me? And yeah, so
Yeah.
that's
There's some
interesting.
cachet having an MBA that would
Yes.
lift you up. But did you feel like you had to do it or you wanted to? It sounded like you wanted to because that's the company would help with
Yeah.
education. That's a great way to do it.
I think so, and I felt like I wanted to. I think growing up, I was maybe a little bit confused about what the right path for success would be for me. I am a first generation here, Armenian, and so my parents immigrated here in their early 20s for my dad and in her teens for my mom, and so I think they did the very best that they could with the resources that they had, and
Yeah.
so going to college was a real luxury for me. We worked really hard to make that happen. And I was the first in my family to formally get that degree. And so I just thought, what else can I do to continue to carve this path for myself?
Yeah.
And so I think that probably had a lot to do with it too, is I didn't know what path
Yeah.
was going to unfold for me.
And as you went along in sales, you found that you could work really complex deals, right?
Yeah. That was my superpower. Yeah.
Tell us
That got
about
really
that.
fun. It's so interesting. There is one story that stands out in my mind in this decade that I worked for. The first company I ever worked for was called eDialogue, an email marketing company. And a few years into the job, I like to say that my manager tapped me and said, "You'd be great at sales." And it was like overnight, I was a success. But it doesn't quite work like that. So for about 6 to 8 months, maybe even a little bit longer, I was actually the marketing coordinator who was also an enterprise sales rep because I got to work some deals at this teeny tiny little salary. And
Yeah.
every time I raised my hand to say, "Does this job pay more?" He would say, "Well, we close deals and you get a commission check, and that's what will pay more." And I thought, and so for a little bit of time, I actually just thought, okay, this is it. And I was young. I just thought, okay, this
Yeah.
is some extra disposable income. No problem.
Yeah.
But I ended up working this super complex deal with one of the largest brands on the planet. They actually flew us in the last round of demos and conversations to Amsterdam to do this big pitch for their global company. And I thought that might be a big deal if I'm doing this,
Big
right?
deal. Yeah.
This big deal. So I ended up actually having this conversation with my manager at the time saying, "I have this feeling that everybody else here is getting, if not triple, at least double what my salary is." And what he said to me is, "Close this deal with ABC brand and we will have a conversation." And at that time, Lori, recruiters were calling me and right, like I was starting to make a name for myself because
Yeah.
email marketing 20 years ago was a big deal.
It
And so
was
they
a big
wanted
deal.
some,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I was, oh, I feel like maybe there is some magic here in what I'm doing. So he said, "Close the deal." Whatever it was, 6 weeks or 8 weeks later, I closed that deal, wrapped it up in a bow, dropped it on his desk. And would you believe in 3 minutes, he turned around and he said to me, $30,000 increase to my base salary, no questions asked, no hesitation, because he knew I was so
Yeah.
underpaid at that time. So he
Well,
handed me a $30,000 increase. And I thought, it's still not where these dudes are, but I'll take it.
yeah,
I'll
I'll
take
take
it.
it.
I'll take it.
Yeah, that's a lot too quick, right?
It was so quick, but it was a lot of money at the time.
Yeah.
You're 25 years old and someone drops 30K on you. You're like, okay,
Yeah.
I see it. I see a career here.
That is so cool. So then you move on eventually?
Yeah, eventually I move on. So I worked there for 10 years. We eventually got bought by GSI and then by eBay. We had an incredible run at the company. In that time, I actually had gotten married. I had 2 kids.
Mm.
And so now I'm a young mom with 2 kids under 4.
Wow.
And yeah, and now
Little
I think,
different
oh,
situation.
completely different,
Yeah.
right? Because now walking into a new company, and they were like a hot tech company out of San Diego. And so I thought, oh gosh, I was joking to you earlier. Maybe I'm not qualified to take this job, right? Because I don't know what happened to me the last 10 years, but I certainly am not qualified to go be working out of San Diego at this big tech startup. So yeah, I ended up actually taking that job. They told me when I first accepted that I would be the first woman on their sales team. And so I thought, okay, let's carry the load of the world on our shoulders as we walk into a
Yeah. Good
nerve-wracking
luck doing this
situation.
first one.
Good luck. Yeah.
Wow.
So I ended up having a great run at that company. I walked in with a ton of baggage, of course. I had to talk my way through all of that as I managed a really busy household, a husband who also is a tech executive and works and has as busy of a schedule as I
Yeah.
do. Yeah, we'd high five each other at the airport and call on our village for help and
Yeah.
just go do the thing.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah,
So then you stayed in sales, so you must have
I
loved it.
did. I did. I loved it. It provided a way for me to provide for my family in a way that I was really proud of. I loved the work that I was doing. I had made some incredible friendships. I had beautiful mentors. It was just a really beautiful symbiotic relationship, but I did have a lot of challenges too. It wasn't easy. There was
Yeah.
a lot of moments where you question the hustle and the work that you're putting into it because it is a lot. And I didn't see a lot of women doing it, right? That was part of it is you feel like you're alone and you have to prove yourself to the perpetual boys club and nothing I ever did ever felt like enough. So I just did more and more. Eventually, like it's burnout, right? You move companies and you hope for some different stability or different situations that kind of help you manage things. But I had a lot of fun trying to figure it out too.
Now you help guide other people on their journeys. You can't just keep doing more and more, right?
You can't.
I don't know what the answer is, but definitely self care has to come into play at some point.
It's a big part of it. It's a big part of it. If you know me, you know that exercise and my workout routine and my non negotiables are such a big part of all of this for me. In
Yeah.
fact, in my book, I have an entire chapter dedicated to what the discipline of exercise and CrossFit did for me in my sales career. It's just a way for you to keep your core values safe
Yeah.
while the world around you is imploding.
You
And I
got to
think
look
it's
out.
really important. Yeah.
Yeah. You're the biggest cheering section that you have, right?
Yeah,
Your
you are.
husband can cheer you on and your family can, but ultimately, we have to support ourselves first and foremost before you can't expect everybody else to just be doing it for us.
No, and they won't. I think
Yeah.
that's part of why I pivoted into my company, Mindful Quadrant, because I realized that even after a decade or almost 2 decades of doing this job, e- every time I started fresh with a
Yeah.
fresh team, with a new product, with a new tech, with a new leader, there was always a reason that they would question the integrity of the sales cycle that I was running because
Really?
they would say, yeah, because there would be a reason where they would say, maybe this doesn't apply because our tech is that good. This will sell itself, or the sales org wasn't quite as mature as I knew it needed to be before it hit an inflection point. And so the process and the discipline that I brought into the sales motion was questioned because
Mm.
we didn't have formal training, or there was
Yeah.
a reason why I was like either a know it all or didn't know enough. And so I remember it was about 5 years ago. I had started at a tech company and I was really aggressively being challenged because the tech was really good, like really good.
Yeah.
But our go to market was not so good when I joined.
Yeah.
And I had a really rough year. And in that particular year, my husband had been laid off, and now we have 2 kids under 10 at home. And I'm the exclusive income in the family and I got to make this stuff work. But that's hard.
Yeah.
But in that moment, you're overcome with a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And so you don't really care, right? What people say about you don't know enough or you're not good enough or
Yeah.
you can't run this the way that you want to run it. And so I had this two path motion going. One where I played the optics and did everything that was expected of me and behaved in a way that was appropriate, that wouldn't get called out or challenged. And then ran the plays the way I knew in my heart they needed to run.
Yeah.
And it was hard because I had a whole year of not being able to show a ton of success. So, my favorite story of all time is 30 days before our fiscal was ending. I was sitting at 40% of my number and I thought, oh, this isn't going to be good for anybody because I know I'm right, but I still need the number. And so I ended up looking at my next year and I looked at all of the deals that I had and I found this pull forward. And we ended up in this meeting with this global office supply company. We're having this conversation. I know in my heart of hearts it's the perfect fit. And so in the meeting, I throw out this, could we make this a team January? And maybe bring this in 4 months sooner than you were expecting, right? I didn't get a yes, Larry, but I didn't get a hell no.
Mhm.
And so I ran that play like my life depended on it.
Yeah.
And at the end of, I'll spare you the drama of the 30 days, but that deal came in as a six-figure deal with 3 hours to spare in our fiscal.
Wow.
And I'm sitting in my home office, my remote home office, pacing, nervous, probably eating like all the bowls of chocolate that were around me. And I ended up closing this deal. And I get a message from corporate that says, your deal actually helped us get not only over our targets, but over our investor targets. And
Wow.
all of a sudden, they were like popping champagne bottles and
Yeah.
doing the whole thing. And that's the moment where I got up from my desk and I walked over to my husband and I said, this is bleepity bleep. And I'm going to write a book about this. And that's when it all started.
Interesting. That is amazing. That's amazing. Yeah, and you worked for very big companies and you've done worked with all sorts of sales teams, and then you decided to go off on your own and start Mindful Quadrant, right?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
I don't need that anymore.
It's not even I don't need that because I did that for 5 more years.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of respect for this job. I actually love the teams and the people that I've worked for. I feel really passionate and blessed that this has been my life.
Yeah.
I think that what happens though is that at a certain point you start to look at where am I in my life? Where am I with my career? And what do I want to give back? And what do I want to do with this gift that I have? And the gift is not just I can close deals, but the gift is I've been able to look back and say, what are the things that have made me successful? What is the secret sauce when I look back and I say, I have been able to 10x my number, not just hit my number, but knock it out of the park? I've closed deals with companies that have taken the company to a whole new trajectory. I've closed deals where 10 years later, they're still saying that was the top deal we've ever closed in the history of this company.
Yeah.
And I have founders of companies at San Francisco startups texting me for Christmas, Merry Christmas, like
Right.
just some really big transformational deals.
Yeah.
And so I think that has led me to think about what are the things that created success and when have I knocked it out of the park? And for me, when I've been able to connect to my purpose at a level that actually allows me to see myself in my sales quota. Why am I here? What am I doing? What is my purpose? What do I want my brand to be? Why am I doing this for me, not for you? It's just been a different ball game. And that's what we teach at Mindful Quadrant.
That's exciting. Who's a good person for your programs? Is it a company? Is it individual?
Yeah, it's both. I'm actually really proud to say that I'm creating a movement around seller enablement. I
Yeah.
think that sales enablement is incredible. It's such an unbelievable resource for sales teams. But I think that sales enablement is like a gym membership. And if you feel like it, you'll go to the gym. And if you don't feel like it, you won't go. So seller enablement to me is about the human. It's about the person. And
It's about
My
us
purpose.
meeting at 6 a.m. on the corner to go
That's
work out.
right. I'm going to make you work out. That's what seller enablement is. So at the end of the day, it's tools and tricks and tips for the seller. So you can find me directly. I'm actually creating a 12-week course that I'm launching in February that takes sellers individually through my program. And it's a combination of introspective and sales frameworks that really pull together how to think about managing your goals, not just at work, not just your sales targets, but your personal life. And what kind of baggage are you bringing into your work, for example? Yeah.
And you did
My
write a
book.
book,
I did write a book. Yeah. Work
and
it,
you have a
girl.
really great planner as well.
I do.
I love.
I do. Lori, you know what I love about my planner? I have to do this shameless plug, but the planner was I would go to sales kickoffs and I would feel like really energized because there's magic in
Yeah,
sales kickoffs.
yeah.
And I just felt like after the camaraderie was gone and the tequila sodas wore off, I would get back to my desk and I would be faced with this reality of my two toddlers and 18 loads of laundry and all the stuff that I had to do. And it was really hard for me to motivate and figure out like, where do I even begin to take control of this big sales target that we all just agreed and high five was going to be the best year of my life, right?
Yeah.
So the planner is really my way of saying, if you use this book with the utmost discipline, and you go through a 90-day cycle where on day one, you say, this is my quarter, these are my goals, these are my intentions. The notebook truly walks you through the quarterly, monthly, weekly, and daily prompts and reflections that you need to hit and exceed your sales targets. It's as simple as that. I just want to be in a seller's pocket helping them achieve their goals.
That's fantastic. And it's not just for women, right? You work with men
No.
and women.
Yeah, I do. I do. I actually am going through you held up very feminine looking books. And it originally was because I really felt like I have a place and a space for women in sales. And I always will because I am one.
Yeah.
But my message is so much bigger. And so right now I'm going through a process where I'm rebranding that notebook. So it's
Yeah.
just going to be a clean, beautiful white aligned with my new branding.
They
And it's going to be generic. It's going to be the moleskin of all notebooks where if you want to be in sales, you use this
get the
planner to help
notebook.
you get through.
I
Yeah, get the
love that. I'm
notebook.
such a planner person. It's so
That
great.
makes me happy.
Yeah, I just can't get I'm the one of those people that just stresses over which one to get, and does it start on Sundays or Mondays, and does is it 14 month, 16 month, or it's
Yeah,
and then the pens and the whole thing.
I
So,
know.
but I
It's a
love
whole
it.
thing.
I'm a
It's a whole
visual.
thing.
I'm a visual person. Well, that's great. How can people find you, and what are you excited about? I guess the rebrand of the books, right?
Yeah, the rebrand is huge. I'm actually really excited about all of it. So we officially launched September 15th of 2024. And this is now the very concentrated effort and launch of Mindful Quadrant. You can see us in a couple of different places, which is our website is mindfulquadrant.com. I am personally on LinkedIn and post a ton. So I would love for people to find me there, Tania Doub on LinkedIn. And then I also, as I said, in February, we'll be launching my course that's open to individuals, but it's also open to sales teams. So I do a lot of work with sales teams where I would actually go in and either do a keynote or a workshop with some of the work that you can find in the modules. And then one of the ways that I'm actually creating this stickiness with sales teams is you can actually take your entire sales team and unleash them into my portal, and they will have access to all of this training for 1 year where they can go through all the modules, figure out their purpose, come up with their why, figure out their goal setting. And we basically go through my framework, which is very focused around these 4 pillars that have to do around discover, decide, design, and disrupt. And discover, decide are all about your own introspective work, discovering your purpose and deciding that you want to take proactive action. And then design and disrupt are all about how do I now take the systems that are in place at my company and the systems that are in place with AI and the people and the resources and the tools, and how do I bring my brand to life through the systems? And then the disruption is literally disrupting your status quo. because the same old thing that you've been doing isn't necessarily working for you anymore, or maybe we want to optimize it. And so, how do we figure out a way to disrupt your status quo so that you can start to do very little things every day, but they build up over time and they create massive impact for yourself
Oh, that's fantastic. I love talking with you. I feel like we could talk for hours.
forever?
We both love sales. We love the career. It's been good to us. And I
Yeah,
love how you said, I can't say a bad thing about it. You're onto your own thing. You still very much appreciate all the mentorship. And I
yeah,
do too. I met some of the best people ever in the different
yeah,
companies that I've worked for. It's just amazing. But I look
yeah.
forward to what's ahead for you, Tanya. This is
Thank
Tanya
you.
Doub. She has mindfulquadrant.com, right? Check her out
Yeah.
at 10 and we'll keep watching and see what's ahead for you. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much. My pleasure, Lori. Thank you so much. Happy holidays to you.
thank you.